Hi everybody, Jonathan Reeves here with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Enscape 3.3 latest release. There's some really cool new features in the latest release of Enscape if you haven't seen them already. So we're going to take a quick look at the page where they've got a blog with some nice kind of listing of the new features here. Now the big headline new feature is all about site context and a really nice easy way for you to bring this into your projects with the integration of a new OpenStreetMap sort of built-in integration. Now this means that you can easily place your projects directly in any location without having to model for ages all the different types of context. There's also a really nice new alpha channel export feature which will make it a lot easier when you do photoshopping and so on for your backgrounds, for your renderings. We're also going to take a look at some of the things like the new educational assets and new material libraries. These are great, particularly when you've got a project in the educational arena as well. And finally, a couple of really nice productivity features. I really love the way you can now pin the Enscape window on top of your project, your modeler. Another really nice new feature is the new material overwrite, and you'll see how this works. It's a real time saver and a real benefit to your workflow. Finally, we've now got some really nice improvements in transparent materials within reflections in your renders. So this makes for a far better quality rendering and get those nice subtle reflections in glass and things like mirrors and windows and so on as well. So I hope you enjoy the video. Let's just jump into this and look at some real project examples with Enscape 3.3. Thanks for watching. Okay, so here's a project that I did a few years ago for a really nice little eco home, and you can see the building was sort of surrounded by some nice landscape, but there wasn't a lot of context that I had available. So let's take a look at how the new Enscape 3.3 can work really well to add context to your model. So as ever, all we need to do is go over to Enscape and basically click with a single button to start Enscape. And just wait for a few moments while the file gets transferred and Enscape starting window will appear, and it will just kind of take a few moments to load that model in. Now if you do have two screens, remember that you can kind of split this across two screens and have Enscape on one screen while you've got your CAD software, in my case Vectorworks, on the other. And here we go, we've got our Enscape model coming into our view already. So let's kind of have a quick explore around. Now, of course, one of the things we all love about Enscape is right out the box, the rendering looks absolutely lovely. And you'll notice that things like the grass in Vectorworks, where it was just sort of a texture, has now been sort of translated into a really nice accurate glass here. And the other thing that I've always loved is if we just hold down the Shift key and right click, we can just basically with the mouse just kind of change that lighting during the course of that day. That looks absolutely lovely as we go through. So what I want to do now is go up to my new site context option, and I'm basically going to click onto this. And the good thing is this is all done in Enscape, not in your native CAD software. So you'll notice a pop-up side window appears, and down at the bottom we can simply click to add some site context. So when we do this, a window pops up in the middle, and we can kind of resize that window if we would like to. Let's make it a little bit wider. And basically you'll notice that it kind of comes up with the default location of Greenwich. Now, I'm assuming this is because of Greenwich Mean Time. Seems to be a good sort of starting point. And actually, as it happens, is quite a nice location for us to just play with this particular project. Now, what we can do is basically move the location around of our project here. And you can see that this little icon here that I can move represents the, if you like, the tile of my project, and you can see it's on a square tile in Enscape. I can also rotate it round as well. So I'm just trying to see if we can find a nice little spot to put our project. Let's kind of make this field a bit wider and just sort of centre it around that project there. And I think that'll be a really good location. Maybe we should actually just try somewhere over here. Now I know this isn't a real context for this particular project, it's really just an example. You'll notice a few options down the side. Okay, so you can turn on things like buildings and landmarks, yes, streets and sidewalks, and topography. Now I'll show you that in a moment, but let's turn that off for now because I want this to come in as a flat site. So let's click OK and see what happens. And within a few moments, you're going to get the new site imported directly into Enscape. So I've kind of like pan back a bit here. Let's kind of just zoom out a little bit here, and you'll see, look at that, we've actually got a really nice kind of context that's come in around our project, and we can kind of place our project wherever we would like. So a couple of really cool things about this integration that I really love, I think this is a very strong integration in Enscape, is that you can kind of basically select each particular building, and you'll notice it actually gives you the name of the road, and if it is named, this building, it's here, the National Maritime Museum. So if we kind of wanted to, we could turn that building off, but let's leave it on. But I really like the way you can actually kind of see all the different names. As I say, you can kind of go and highlight those. You'll notice them sort of highlighting as I go through. So you basically got the buildings, and you've got the streets and the sort of sidewalks and the landmarks. So it's very helpful as you go through. Okay, so there's a couple of options in here. We can turn off the entire context as and when we want to. If we do click onto the option here, we could always update the context if we got it slightly wrong, or we can click edit to edit it. Now, in the edit mode, you'll notice that now I can basically click onto the move icon down in the corner, and I could rotate it as well. So let's just kind of get into this. You can see how it's sort of rotating around. Okay, that's pretty cool. And if we click and move, then we can basically, when we're ready, we can click confirm changes. So it's very easy to locate your project if it didn't come in completely accurately. If you do want to, you can also remove the site context. Let's just do that for now. Quite straightforward. And you know what? Let's just add in a different one. So this time I'm going to go to my local town where I live. Let's go to Loughborough, which is nicely positioned in the middle of the UK. And here we are in Loughborough now. So what I'm going to try and do is just find a little kind of site that our building might sort of sit in comfortably. And I'm going to place it on a place near where my old office used to be, down here. There is a building there at the moment, but we'll be able to turn that off in a minute. Let's rotate it round, and let's just zoom out a little bit more. So I don't need the whole of Loughborough for this particular view, so I think it's probably worth me just kind of shrinking this context in a little bit, and that should be plenty. Okay, so when we're ready, as ever, we'll click import, but I will turn off the top view once again, and we'll have a look at that later on. So here we go, we've brought the building in, and you'll notice what's nice is it actually kept the building turned off, if you like, around where my project is. So it looks really cool. You know, we can kind of go and have a bit of a look at Loughborough now, and if I want to, I can go to the well-known landmarks around my local town. Baxter Gate, let's have a look, where's that? That's probably around the other side. There we go. So yeah, really fantastic tool. Now, as ever, when you slide through the times of the dates and stuff, you're going to get those lovely shadows coming into the project as well, and so on. So I really like this new site feature. I think it's great for adding lots of context into your projects and very sort of rapidly positioning your buildings in something a bit more realistic. Now I know this example is not at all the kind of right context, but it's really just to show you in urban sites how well this works. And don't forget, there are all these other options here, things like resetting visibilities, hiding overlapping data as well is another option. But it's just very well integrated, and I do think that, you know, this is a very slick integration of the OpenStreetMap technology that everybody can sort of benefit from with ease in their projects, just to save a lot of time when they're kind of like modelling up some site context without having to kind of model the rest of the world these days. So I really hope you enjoy this new feature, and we'll kind of take a look at some of the other new features in a moment as well. But I can't resist just scrolling through that time of day one more time and just getting a kind of nice shot of the project in some context. We're going to take a look at another few new features of Enscape 3.3, and I thought it'd be nice to show you a slightly different project here. I like to show real world examples of how this can be used. Now this was for an eco home I designed. You can see it's all modelled in Vectorworks, and actually this was one where I did model the context myself. So wouldn't it have been nice to have that new site context feature for this? That would have saved me a lot of time. Sometimes you do need to model a bit of context, but other times it would have been nice to have more in the background and so on as well. Okay, so you can see we've got the project over in Enscape. It's already looking pretty nice. And the new feature that I really want to focus on here is going to be found up in the visual settings. So if we go through to the Output tab, you'll notice that as soon as you change from the JPEG where this is grayed out, if you go to, say, for example, PNG or the other file formats there, now we can check Apply Alpha Channel. Now this is going to be a really useful feature because it means that we can composite our building into a nice background, and all we need to do then is just close that window down. Let's just get that view looking a bit nicer, and let's go ahead and render that view out. So as ever, the window will kind of just take a few seconds to render up. It's pretty much done in the flash of an eye. And basically now what we can do is just go over to Photoshop, and you can see that I've actually got a couple of skies in here already, ready to go. And what I'm going to do is go File, Open. I'm just going ahead and open that latest rendering here. I've got a feeling it was this one here. Okay, and fantastic. You can see we've now got this wonderful alpha channel in the background. So the best way to work with this is take a sky that you might like to use. Let's just select all of it and go over to our window and just paste it in to begin with. Now you will need to move it behind the image, and then if you do need to, just select the transform command and just transform to bring that through. And then you can sort of adjust locally where that sky might kind of sit best. So that looks really cool. You can see how nice and useful it is having that lovely alpha channel, and it's very high quality in terms of if you zoom in, you can see they've done a really good job at the alpha channel in terms of the rendering there. Okay, so let's take a look at another background. I'm just going to select this one and copy this new one in, go to my layers, simply paste, and let's just zoom out a bit and Control T, and you can see it's really straightforward and easy to apply another type of background there using that lovely alpha channel. So we've gone from the kind of image where it was pretty static to something really nice with lots of variable sort of alpha channels that we can play around with during the course of our project. So don't forget, there's another cool feature if you just go up into the visual settings that we didn't talk about, and it's basically this. If you do click this checkbox here, you can export things like object ID, material ID, depth channels, and also alpha channels as well. But that is different to the background alpha channel. So let's go ahead and just render out this image and just let that render for a second. Okay, so let's have a quick look now in our outputs folder. And you can see that we've got the various images here. Let me just open those up that we can kind of scroll through. So you've got things like the shadows, you've got the depth channel, you've got the material ID, and so on as well. So all of that is useful in your image editing software. And just to finish off with the material ID, so what you can do is use your wand tool, for example, to select all the timber cladding there. Let's hide that layer, just go down and select the other one. If we do Command H, we can actually hide the marquee. And now look, you can see I can easily kind of just make these fine adjustments just on the material itself without necessarily having to kind of re-render my entire project. So really, really flexible, and things like Material ID now combined with the new feature of the alpha channel is absolutely spectacular in my view. So wonderful new features in Enscape 3.3. Okay, so here we are just looking at the building in, shall we say, not in context, just on its own. I want to show you one other really cool feature. Now, while we can use the split screen view, sometimes it's nice to be able to kind of maximize our CAD software. But when we do that, of course, Enscape disappears behind. So now what we can do is pop into the Enscape settings, go to your preferences, and there's a really nice new option here called Pin Enscape Window on top of Host Application. So watch what happens now. Basically, when I kind of go maximize my CAD software, if you like, my host application stays. So basically, this means that as well as minimizing it, I can kind of keep it parked on top. And that's really nice, especially when you're on either a big screen or a single screen, to be able to kind of have that available. Now, I can still minimize it down to the bottom when I want to, and just sort of pop it up as and when I want to, and it'll restore. But I love the fact you can now just pin it and use Enscape while you're in your modeling software. So what a fantastic new feature. We're going to look at another amazing new feature of the new Enscape 3.3 now, and this is basically the ability to replace materials much more easily. So all we need to do is go over to our material editor, and you'll notice that all the materials used in my CAD software are pop up here. So if I do want to, I can use a little filter and say search, and I can find a particular material. Let's go for this limestone here. Now you notice that I can actually select things like the texture, and if I did want to I could kind of swap that out, and there's some other functions in here. But the nice new feature that I really wanted to focus on is the fact I can now click replace with Enscape material. So let's just sort of see if we've got some tiles in here that I might want to replace it with. Some really interesting tiles. Let's go for this one here. So basically when I'm happy, you'll notice already it's previewing it into the Enscape window. If I wanted to, I can click replace. Let's just go ahead and preview a few different ones. Let's preview something that's going to be pretty dramatic, just so you can see. Let's just find something a little bit more appropriate for this particular project. I think that looks really cool. Yeah, let's go for it. Let's click replace. So basically you'll notice that I've now swapped that out, and not only that, it's actually swapped it out in my CAD software as well. If you want to try out some different material options and just sort of preview how that might look, I can always kind of do undo, go back to what it was like before, so you're not committed, but it's just a really nice way to swap out those materials using the Enscape library, and that really dramatically enhances your CAD or BIM software. Okay, so let's take a look at one more example of the material placement, and to do this I'm just going to basically turn off my other floors, if you like. I really love looking at things like these sort of 3D rendered floor plans in Enscape, and again let's just kind of scroll through the different times of the day. As I say, look, just pop into full screen at any moment if I want to. Let's just kind of have a quick look at that, scrolling through the time of the day. But when I maximise or minimise, it just pops back where it was before. Okay, so I'm just going to click onto this material here so I can check it. So this is wood. So what we can do, if we just go to our material library here, type in and search for wood, hopefully that will kind of give us a filter. And let's just see if we can find the one that we wanted, just get the right code there. It was this one here. Okay, so we found that material nice and easily. Let's go ahead. If we did want to, by the way, we could actually do some things like some tinting in here as well. Now you notice that you can kind of like change the tones here over in the Enscape window, but not change the tints in Vectorworks, which is actually really, really handy. But let's go ahead and click replace. So just let the material library load in for a second. Let's just go for some nice wood flooring, see if we've got something else we want to try and use. Go for this herringbone. So that looks really cool. Let's click replace. And not only can we see that replaced in Vectorworks, but you now see that being replaced in Enscape as well. So very, very nice example of how you can swap out materials quite easily using the new Enscape 3.3 features. So you can see the lovely sort of quality of lighting, particularly as I kind of slide through the different sort of times of the day that we're getting in Enscape, and absolutely fantastic sort of renders just straight out the box. So what a fantastic new feature, the ability to pin your window and kind of really kind of enjoy a much more sort of immersive environment while you're in your software. The fact that you can now basically swap materials out with a kind of fairly quick single click just by popping into materials. Just go and swap that wood out one more time, and there it is, it's the wood array. Just going to right click, replace, and I think we'll swap it out for a different type of wood. Let's go for something a lot lighter. Swap it out for a laminate. And you can see, very easy and very fast. So go ahead, click replace, and it's replaced both in my CAD software and also in my Enscape window too. So I really love this feature, it's one of my favourites. So as we all know, reflections are incredibly important in high-end CGI visualizations, and with Enscape 3.3 we now support transparent materials in reflections on the appropriate RTX and AMD hardware. So fantastic new improvements. Okay, so we're going to take a look at another project just to finish off these last few new features of Enscape 3.3, and once again this is for an industrial building, and you can see here I am in Vectorworks with the model. Looks kind of nice but sort of very basic, and already it's looking really nice in Enscape over on this side. Again, this lovely ability to change the lighting that we love. But the new feature I want to mention now is about some of the improvements to the asset library. So if you click onto the asset library, you'll notice they've made some really big improvements here. There's now so many different objects available, over 3,000 you can see. So if you go back to the people section here, and basically you can see that there's now 422 people. So let's just expand this just to give you a bit of an idea of how many different types of people and varieties there are. They're really, really nice, and if you do want to, what I like is you can actually filter these by different sort of age groups or different activities, for example business as well. So once again, it's very easy. All you do, select the item, click into your model, and then it appears, as you can see, very, very rapidly. Let's just quickly sort of populate our project with a few more people. Try and get the right kind of people for this. Let's go for this lady here, just having a wander by the pond. You can just see how easy this process is. I really like the fact in Enscape you kind of just get these sort of proxy models in your CAD software. In this case I'm using Vectorworks. But the really nice thing is they don't have any weight, so they don't sort of take up too much file size. Let's have a bicycle over here. So yeah, what do you think about the new people, guys? I think they're looking really nice. Let's just go full screen there. Just have a kind of look around our project, and basically it's looking quite nice. And you know, this is one that I really haven't done that much work on at all yet. I've just been kind of brought it in. Definitely need to work on things like the glass and things like that. But the water looks nice, and this sort of ability to change through that sort of lighting in that real time looks absolutely stunning as ever. Okay, so you can see here we are inside the building, and there's really not a lot in this very large sort of industrial building at the moment. We haven't done the interiors at this stage of the project, but what I really want to show you is how we can basically add some educational assets from the new library. So again, let's click onto the asset library. So you're going to want to go down to the furniture library. And one thing I really do like about Enscape is the fact that as well as that, you've got these tags down here. So if you go down and search for education, you're going to notice some really nice new educational assets have been brought in. And with a single click, look, I can just kind of place that, and hopefully there it will appear. So let's just take a look at that again. Let's just go to our asset library and see what else we've got. You can see there's all sorts of tables and chairs. Some of these are still loading in, as you can see. One thing I would recommend is that you can actually download the Enscape asset library so it's offline, if you like. So that means that it will be kind of stored on your computer, so it'll be a little bit faster to actually kind of access. So it's definitely a good tip. If you kind of got a large project, you might want to access more of these libraries without having to kind of wait for them to download. So do consider that. But you know, what do you think of the new assets? I think they're excellent. Very, very quickly we can add some nice detail to our scene quite rapidly. Let's just add one more there. Okay, so you can see we've added a few educational assets. Let's just look at those in full screen. And I think you'll agree they're really nice quality assets that you can kind of use in your project really, really rapidly. And these a great improvement to the libraries that Enscape's offered. And the Enscape library is just improving all the time. So in 3.3, it's better than ever. Well everybody, I do hope you've enjoyed this Enscape 3.3 video. It's been really good fun to make. So do take a look at the blog. There are a few other new features we haven't mentioned, like the new support for SketchUp 2022, the Japanese language version now, and also some camera optimizations for ArchiCAD and Revit as well, but a lot more besides. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.